Looks like we're live, and I am I'm going to be trying to get Brent online here. We were only ever successful getting this to work properly one time for whatever reason, and since then, I haven't been able to. So let's see if we can get them back happening here. Okay, I am live now, trying to get them online. We'll figure out how to do this. So we don't have to go through all this crap one of these days. So try it again, dude. There you are. I see you. Can you see me? It's just so odd. It's like here's the settings, and let's see here. So I'm trying to figure this out. Yeah, we got all of this. Manager contacts. Start a group conversation or video call. Click message or video call. It's on YouTube. Invite someone to YouTube. Here we go. Just so I did the invite thing, and for whatever reason, he's saying it doesn't work. So let's see, camera, hangout toolbox, control room. Can you hear me? I mean, you can at least watch what I'm doing. Let's see. So now I'm sharing the controls with you. Okay, Brent, you should be presenting now. Are you there? Hello. It's possibly. Wait a minute.
Can you hear me?
I can now. When your mic's super hot.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, but now I can't see it.
All right. Yeah, so I was trying it through Brave, and it wasn't working for some reason or another. When it worked last time. So Brave, the browser that I use. So
actually, it didn't work last time. That was the thing. You had to actually switch to Chrome, I think, or Internet Explorer, something.
So I'm in Chrome now, but I don't know why you can't see me. I can hear and see you.
Cool.
Let me turn my camera off and turn it back on and see if that works.
There it is.
Is that better?
Now, yeah. I gotcha. What do you know?
All right.
Well, look at this.
All right.
So was that the issue? Is that you were using the same? Because we tried this a couple of weeks ago, and it just had us both totally confounded. And
however, a couple of weeks ago, I tried both browsers, so I don't think that was the issue.
Oh, okay. Well, it's kind of funny too. It's not a great testament to what it is I do for my profession. If I can't figure this kind of stuff out. So just in case anybody ever asks, it was Brent's fault.
Go fuck yourself, Wince. It was your fault.
I do that every day. So the invitation is really nothing new. Not to mention how often I'm told to do that. Yeah, something like that. So do you see this is what, when I said I was working on some art.
I dig it.
You see this?
I guess a buddy of mine is desperate to call in and give his thoughts, and he has no idea what he's even giving his thoughts on because he's not.
Well, neither do we
at the moment. Exactly.
Yeah.
Because are we presenting right now, or is it?
Yeah, we're live, dude. Yeah, we're
Sweet.
live. I should probably actually post the link to the social media pages, because otherwise we're just going to sit here and talk to each other. which generally isn't all that entertaining to begin with. So, well, anyway, it's good. What are you shaving your head for these days, man? You know,
I cut my hair off like 8 years ago.
I know, but now it's even,
it was a mohawk.
Yeah. Okay. So,
but now it's growing out a little.
Wait a minute.
I haven't cut it in like 2 weeks.
It was a mohawk.
Yeah.
And so, wait a minute. How old were you when you did the mohawk?
I was 2 weeks years old. 2 weeks ago, years old.
I believe it. Live discussing stupid
bullshit.
So I think I told you about this. One of the guys I really liked, YouTuber that I like to watch, Sargon. Yeah. He had his show was called. He had a weekly bit that he called "This Week in Stupid," which I really liked. But I think you and everybody else kind of witnessed my vast frustration last week as I was following this Catholic school MAGA kids thing, where
Jesus, that's an atrocious picture of me and what you just shared.
Isn't that awesome? Yeah. I couldn't have picked it better if I picked it myself, and I didn't. That was just whatever it automatically chose. Sorry. So, in any case, I'm watching this thing, and I was thinking, okay, the event was really well publicized, and then you have these
talking about?
These Catholic. What was the name of this Catholic school?
Oh yeah,
Nathan
Covington.
Yeah, Covington. Thanks. Yeah, and so I'm watching the Twitter feed, and I'm seeing all of course, the selective moral outrage going on, and it was frustrating, but I did just 10 minutes worth of research and watched a couple of unedited videos from the event. The event was well publicized. There was cameras everywhere. There was people with lots of cameras everywhere. The Covington boys that were wearing these MAGA hats also had a chaperone with them, and he was actually.
And they literally were doing nothing.
Nothing. They were literally doing nothing. And so then I check into. It was like two days later. I check into Facebook, and the predictability of who it is that is going to support it, to believe that it happened the way that the news said it would, and the predictability of the people who believe that it didn't happen based on the way that
not to mention the sheer number of quote unquote moral and ethical adults who literally were advocating punching children in their stupid fucking faces that's all. Stupid, smug looking fucking faces. That was it. Have you ever seen a more punchable face?
That was Reza Aslan who said that.
That fucking piece of shit.
Unbelievable. So the kid's 17 years old. I have a 16-year-old. If there was a bunch of people on social media threatening my kid, I'd lose. It wouldn't be okay. I wouldn't be okay. My family wouldn't be okay. My kid wouldn't be okay. And my first reaction, unfortunately, wouldn't be a very good one. You know what I mean? I would probably return the threats. You just don't. This is a place where you don't piss. You know what I mean?
Right.
So again, the predictability. I'm watching. Who the usual players are for me, at least on Facebook, which I have not engaged now in more than a week. Very proud of myself. This is the longest I've gone.
I bet you feel a lot better.
I do, actually. Honestly, it's funny because you have that when you're a Facebook junkie, like many of us are. I don't know about you. I know, I've admitted, but you grab that phone all the time. Did anybody reply? Yeah, there's a response there. So, but you know who I'm talking about, and it was the posts from the people that we would expect to simply believe it or believe big parts of it without bothering to check it. And then the people who
their narrative.
Right. And this is why I lost my cool, man. This is like, you know what? I believe my last post was the people of this world are just too fucking stupid for me to engage. I'm out.
Yeah.
And And then on the
I grew out of moshing a long time ago. Wink.
Actually, well, I know who it is you're talking about and what it is.
Oh, did I make it that obvious? I wasn't aware.
Yeah, you kind of did. But but what I'm not just referring to truly, I'm not just referring to him. I'm talking about
Scott, you don't.
Just pretty much everybody, really. I mean, seriously, it's everybody. You know, anybody and everybody that you would understand to take that position because of their particular proclivities took it.
Yeah, my timeline has turned more and more into an echo chamber, and that's not by design. It's either you're echoing my thoughts or you're monumentally fucking retarded, and I can't find any middle ground, and that upsets me.
And this is really what's bothering me the most too, frankly, is that whole exactly what you just said. There's, you know, it's either an echo chamber or it's an echo chamber, dude. It's an echo chamber for the left or for the right. That's it.
Yeah.
You know, there's not a lot of critical thinking going on. So like I said, my first reaction to it when I was watching, I was up at a friend's house in Lake Tahoe. It popped up on the news.
Out fucking Lake Tahoe, hoity-toity. I like it.
Well, you know, actually, it's funny, you know, that sidebar, we'll get back to this in a second. You know that I've done these 2 videos in a series on basically what amounts to the culture war. And I have a third that's prepared, but what you know that one of the many arguments that I've gotten into on social media has been simply presenting, hey, look, California ranks dead last in opportunity. It ranks dead last in income and equality, et cetera. And over the last week, some more information has come to light. So I've been working on that one. I will get the other video done, and I do want to talk about those tonight. But that's what's actually been the holdup, is that new information about, you know, what's happening in California has come to light, and that's what I've been working on. Anyway, so again, the predictability of who it is that is, you know, going to simply believe wholesale that these 17-year-olds with a chaperone from a Catholic school are out there being bigoted punks.
Waiting on their bus at the Lincoln Memorial. They weren't even taking part in anything. They were literally waiting on their bus. And the Black Israelites were yelling and screaming and calling them child molesters and everything else, which I'm not sure how you call a child molester, but, you know, hey, whatever, to each their own.
Well, they were yelling
and then this
at a bunch
fucking
of
Nathan Phillips lying piece of shit cocksucker wants to fucking walk up and say, I was diffusing a situation while beating my drum in this child's face. Because he was a Vietnam veteran. Actually, he was a refrigerator repairman in the military in Vietnam. But hey, you know, hey.
He had actually also gone AWOL twice. Don't know if you were aware of that.
I had heard something about that. I hadn't verified it, but yeah.
So
it wouldn't surprise me. Literally everything else he said throughout all of this has been a lie. He was talking about how they were chanting "build the wall, build the wall." When if you go watch the 2+ hours of video, literally not a single person said it, and literally no one has said that they said it other than him who was there.
Pretty much. And that is the case, man. That's,
you know, where to believe him, because, you know, believe all victims.
Right. Well, it's not even believe all victims, because we had, as you pointed out, the Black Israelites there.
Literally, my favorite part of this whole thing that happened was the Black Israelites telling a Black student from that school that his white classmates were going to drug him and harvest his organs.
Among other things.
Among other things. That is literally my favorite thing to come out of all of this.
Well, that's because you're a sick fuck. I mean, we all know. Hilarious. I mean, this is nothing new. We know. So, yeah, the bottom line comes down to this: is that this is what the polarization of the country currently looks like, and it's so bad that one of the things that's really bothering me, what really flipped me out. This is why I said, you know what, I can't do this anymore. I'm not going to engage people on social media about these kinds of things anymore, because it's so frustrating and so toxic that because my original aim with all of this was to try and find some sort of way to bridge that gap. So I popped back on social media a couple of days after the original broadcast of this ridiculous crap. And what I see is, again, the usual suspects saying, well, you know, maybe this part and this part weren't true, but these kids still did this and this. Like, no, they actually didn't. They didn't do any of that.
Yeah, so literally everything that's been attributed to them has been walked back by those who are willing to admit that they were wrong, or doubled down upon by those who are not willing to admit that they're wrong. But regardless of the fact, literally none of it's true. The only thing that they can say happened was he smirked in the dude's face.
Oh, no,
what did you expect him to do?
It was an assault smirk.
Nothing else.
But we have to ban.
No. You forgot. High capacity assault smirk.
Right. It was a high capacity assault smirk. Yeah,
you had extra banana clips of assault smirks stored.
Well, wait a minute. You know, just saying banana might offend somebody that's crazy. So
it offends me. I fucking hate bananas, and I said it. So fuck off.
So you get. I know this is. I know you understand. But what blows my mind is that we have CNN did not walk it back. Instead, they chose to report different nuances of it until they finally had to go, okay, you know, we screwed this up. But not before. We had guys like Reza Aslan who was saying, you know, that the kids should be punched. And then I actually downloaded one of my favorite tools. You might actually enjoy this, Brent, because you're a sick boy, is hashtag verified hate. And if you watched my last video, you can see just this gigantic collection that I set to music of tweets that are bigoted, hateful, racist, misogynist, anger, calls for violence.
I'm just going to start taking pictures of my ball sack and hashtagging it verified hate. I mean, it's Twitter, anything goes.
Well, what did you think I was talking about?
Hate sack.
So this was again, this is what triggered me to something that David Peters has been telling me for months. Pick a side. I'm not going to pick a side, man. No. I am going to continue to. Again, I tuned into this.
It's like the whole thing, like just to take an aside here, it's like anyone who's like, oh, well, if you didn't vote, you have no right to bitch. Vote,
one of the dumbest non sequitur fucking stupid arguments I've ever heard in my life. I have the right to bitch if I vote or if I don't. I
didn't take part in this whole asinine goddamn process, which gives me every right to bitch from the outside going, hey, both sides are monumentally fucking full-on gurgling retarded.
That's one way of putting it.
I'm not as eloquent as you are, Mr. Wentz.
Actually, you can be. It's just
I just choose not to.
Yeah, you're way too pissed off to put in the effort. So yeah, I can appreciate that. I'm getting there myself. What all of this made me realize is that, you know, that there has now been an official breakdown to the point where, and this is one of my favorite things that came out of this. Did you see that in the past week, the Huffington Post and BuzzFeed.
I didn't. If it was anything Huffington Post, I've actively got them blocked on my Facebook.
Oh no. This is not something they posted. This is something that happened.
Oh.
They and BuzzFeed have laid off about 1,000 journalists.
Oh, wonderful. And I use that term, or you should use that term journalist.
I'm very selective
because
about
if they were actually journalists, they would go through and actually do some goddamn research on something before jumping to the worst possible conclusion that could be made about any number of things, as long as it fits their narrative. S.E. Cupp from CNN, who, you know, walked back her statements a little bit, but not so much. But then you look at people like Bill Kristol, who, you know, the darling of the left for being so brave, for standing up to Trump and stuff like that. And he says all these things about these kids throughout all this whole thing on Twitter. And then instead of walking back any of his statements, he just simply deleted his tweets like they never actually happened.
And this is what they do, because it's more important to win points in this culture war. It's more important to show that, you know, everybody, you know, to show that you're a bastion of virtue than it is to present information. And I've been thinking a lot about why, and it's funny because I think 10 years ago.
It's a game. It's a game.
I think, and it's a game that at this point, these are the tactics that are being used to win. And I think 10 years ago, if you would have told me that, if you would have said to me, hey, basically what's happening right now is that the people in power are rigging the game for themselves in order to continue a cultural divide so that they can essentially usurp all of the power. The people, I would have laughed. I would have said, you're full of shit. It's a conspiracy theory. This is the United States, man. This isn't Bolivia. And when you look at, there's a couple of things. There is the game that's being played right now in terms of, here, let me just rewind a second. It's hard for me to make sure that my thoughts are organized when I want to build a structure for you to examine. You know what I mean? Easier for me to type it sometimes.
Sure.
If the ultimate goal is to keep the people divided and fighting, so that those that are in power or seeking to be in power or to maintain power can do so pretty much unopposed, dividing them along class lines isn't such a great idea. Class lines is pretty much what has always existed. There's always been the rich, the poor, the middle, middle class since about the 19th century, or the 19th century. Old, young, pretty, black, red, blah, 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 blah. It has become divided. And that actually, when you do that along class, historically, what has happened is that they all kind of get together and say, wait a minute, we're being screwed over because we are the way we are. So
Except
then
we're literally too stupid to say that we're being screwed over right now, aside from maybe, 10% of the population, 20% of the population?
Because what's actually going on now is something fairly unique. And that is that for the first time, I can say, at least in the history that I have studied, and this is not only my passion, but my academic endeavor.
Okay.
Is that right now we're being divided by what we look like. This has never really kind of been, at least in recent history, I can't find any examples to where that's, because when you rewind to the 15th century and you had enslaved peoples, etc., they were actually considered inferior not because of their color. They were considered inferior because of where they were from. The piece of dirt that they were born on was indicative of their class. So it was really divided by class lines. And when you divide people among class lines, ultimately you have things like the French Revolution and the Reign of Terror and Robespierre. You have beheadings, and you have, that's what happens. And if you look at what's happening in France right now, what's interesting is that the American news media has stopped largely reporting on it. I just saw a report from Paris a week ago.
I haven't seen anything from France in probably a week and a half.
It's terrifying. I watched a video where there were the protesters, the people in the streets, outnumbered the police probably by 500 to 1. It was really scary to see this gigantic wave of people that were pushing lines of cops back up against the wall.
And the last I saw, the cops were willing to actually jump on their side and to get better pay and stuff like that for themselves.
And this is ultimately what I'm saying is coming, because
and the reason part where you and I make a bunch of white hats to signify white flags that say "Make guillotines great again" on them.
I love it. I love it. Make guillotines great again. So let's take a look at what's happening right now. You have let's go down to our friends in Brazil. You and I have some mutual friends from Brazil. In 1998,
Bill Hudson and
right, Mr. Hudson, and of course my Marcelo
Milton Mendoza,
and Carlos Zima.
I don't know Carlos, you do, but
guys from the Element. What in 1998-ish, a guy named Lula came to prominence and said, look, turn the government into this. I'm just going to simplify. We're going to, the rich need to pay their fair share.
Much like is happening here now.
It's funny when you listen to the language used of every charismatic dictator in history. It's very similar. It's almost all the same, but we fall for it. It's just, so again, let's go.
Stupid.
look at the structure. So, you know, they had in Brazil, a corrupt dictatorship, but it actually worked a hell of a lot better than the socialism that Lula brought in. And for about 18 years, Lula kind of ran the country into the ground. And I'm sure Milton could probably even tell you that a couple of years ago, just getting bands into Brazil to play became more expensive every day because of the hyperinflation of their money. It was losing value to the point where you just didn't know, you know, if you were going to, a promoter that was going to fly a band in and you're buying their plane tickets, you had to do it quick before the currency changed and you couldn't afford to do it anymore. That happened to Circle to Circle, actually. So, and what happened this past year? Well, a guy named Bolsonaro was elected, and they actually, I don't know if you saw it or not, Bolsonaro was, there was an assassination attempt. He was stabbed. Somebody tried to kill him.
I didn't see that.
Because he essentially, I mean, in essence,
when was this?
Last summer.
Oh, okay.
He won the election just, I want to say in October, very similar timeline to the elections in the U.S., but he survived the assassination attempt. But he was saying that he was going to remove Lula, and he was essentially calling for the public hangings of the people who ripped off the people of Brazil, you know, while promising this glorious socialist paradise. And I believe the vote was something like 80%. It was 70 to 80%. I'll look it up while we're talking so that we're presenting accurate information. So that went on, you know, that was a populist thing that was happening. Italy elected a populist president. Populism.
We elected a populist president.
The U.S. elected a populist president. And when you look at historically, again, when these kinds of changes are taking place, it is because the people are finally beginning to speak amongst themselves instead of at each other. So right now we have all of these high-profile people that are, you know, you should see the, you know, like the Alyssa Milano. Did you see Alyssa Milano's ridiculous tweet about the MAGA hat is the new white hood?
Yeah, why do we pay attention to celebrities to give us our political opinions?
Why do we listen to politicians to give us our political opinions?
There's that too.
Why do we listen? Why would you ever listen to Bernie Sanders tell you what climate change is going to do? He's not a fucking scientist. He's an imbecile.
He's a goddamn socialist scientist, man.
Oh, that's right. He's a scientist. What kind of science does he? Does he grow weed or something? He's a hydroponics expert. The point being is that why do we listen to any of these people wholesale? Well, mostly because, again, we have been news has been weaponized. And so I posted something on the Skeptic Tank page the other day saying that we tune into what channel that we want to tune into in order to hear what our opinions are. And then we tune out. You know,
like on either side, you can hear anybody at any given time say, well, Fox News is a crock of shit. If you at least watch CNN or MSNBC, they might not be perfect all the time, but at least they don't have as much of a slant, blah, blah, blah. And then you can find someone else who says the exact same thing about Fox News versus the other two. And it's like, don't you realize that they're all slanted towards their particular biases? And that's why if you're going to take news, you should take it from many different sources and figure out the common denominators between them and go from there.
Well, you know, think of it in terms like this. Not only was the news weaponized, but it's also become, it moves so quickly. It moves so quickly that if I have a phone and a Twitter account and I'm on site while something's going on, I can get to it way faster than CNN can.
Sure.
So now CNN or Fox or MSNBC has to compete with somebody else on the street. And so what they're doing at this point is they're trolling social media for stories. Because, you know, and again, an amateur could probably do a better job at this point. So they have to specifically pander to a demographic rather than reporting information that people can digest. And you can see this stuff. It's last week. Let's move on to this too. BuzzFeed. Even Mueller came out and said, no, BuzzFeed doesn't have any source saying this because this didn't happen in relation to Cohen saying
which is hilarious because if you found the guy who actually was writing that article for BuzzFeed, he said, and I quote, he was 100% certain that this happened.
Right. And
yeah, but
even and then he actually then he doubled down. He actually doubled down on that too after the Mueller's office said that these things did not happen. And that he doesn't have this information, and this is not anything official. They got, I think it was on CNN where he had been on a phone interview. The BuzzFeed journalist, I hate using that word in relation to people like this.
They're not journalists. They're rabble rousers who don't know their ass from a hole in the ground.
Well, I think they've gotten lazy. At this point, it is about continuing the divide. It's about pushing the narrative. It is actually about my team, my tribe, being right while yours is wrong. And one of the things...
Have they gotten lazy, or have they just not ever been good? Because, I mean, if we're talking about BuzzFeed, am I just going to sit here and give you the top 10 reasons as to why something happened and you'll never believe the answer? Because that's pretty much where we've always been with BuzzFeed.
Well, it's not just BuzzFeed. It's pretty much anything else that gets paid per click. So, and this is also why if you look at headlines from BuzzFeed and then a headline from Fox News and a headline from MSNBC, for example, all as posted on social media. Most people these days get their news from social media, which is also another terrifying.
And on top of that, most people get their news from headlines instead of actually reading full articles.
The demographic, the research says that people read the headline, they click on it, and they read the first paragraph.
Yep.
And you can test this theory by actually going and reading the first paragraph of any news story because they encapsulate everything in it, after which they post the details. They know that I think, I don't have the numbers in front of me.
9 times out of 10, that first paragraph is editorializing instead of actual journalism.
Right. And this is what it's become because, again, I have an amateur YouTube page and I'm reporting ideas and news and my own, we're talking about this stuff here.
Sure.
People will tune into this. Well, nobody really has, but some people will. And we can get the information to them more clearly and faster. There aren't any commercials. There's no, there isn't anybody's particular slant. I'm not going to say something. I'm not going to report something. I'm providing an opinion, and that's the idea. We tune into CNN and NBC and CBS and everything else because we're actually looking for facts. And
sure,
I think some of that is gone. Now, you said, have they become lazy? Or has it always been that way? Is that what you were asking? Because no, I mean, you're probably too young to remember Walter Cronkite. But
I wasn't asking. I was saying that they've always been lazy. If you want to go back to real hard-hitting journalism back in the day, sure, you can find it. But in the age of the 24-hour news cycle and internet journalism, you're not going to find a lot of it.
And not only that, but, cable newscasters that have become rock stars.
Sure.
Did you see Jim Acosta at the border? It was an embarrassment.
I try not to.
With it, did you see it, though? He goes down to the border to try and, make some case that there's no crisis there.
Yeah, and it literally,
did you see it?
he proved his own point wrong.
He was standing in front of a wall. It's like this big wall. Yeah, there's nobody here. Well, no really kidding. There's a freaking wall there. But he had like his sport coat and his shades, and I'm just going, you Maury Povich now? What are you doing?
I wish Jim Acosta would get Jim Accosted.
So we have information that is being presented as factual that is actually still specifically designed to win points for a team. And the problem with this is that, again, I actually signed up for Twitter when I set up the Skeptic tank. Mm-hmm. Because that's where, because a lot of people post ideas and news, and this is where honestly, it's, the Twitter universe is much bigger than the Facebook universe in terms of what I see in my feed. What I see in my feed on Facebook is more geared towards my friends and my family and what other people that I know are saying, things like that. Twitter is just this constant, stream of garbage. Really, it's kind of amazing that some people spend so much time on there. But one of the things that I see is that, that there is personally, you know what, man, I have a lot of progressive and liberal ideas that I agree with, a lot of them. There's a lot of conservative ideas that I agree with. Hell, I even agree with some of your dumb shit ideas.
Let me preface my own feelings with a caveat there. I agree with a lot of them. I don't think the government should be involved with any of them.
Well,
do I agree with opportunity of equality? Absolutely.
Yeah, equal opportunity. This is, and this
you
is
can't
where
have equality of outcome. It's impossible.
No.
But you can absolutely have equality of opportunity, and I think that it should be striven upon at every level.
Well, there's something far worse happening right now, because guaranteeing equality of outcome is dangerous. But what's even
impossible, much less dangerous.
Well, but when you have a politician. Have you been listening to Kamala Harris, for example?
No, the only Kamala Harris that I ever cared for was Jim Kamala Harris, who was a famous pro wrestler who beat Hulk Hogan.
That's right. Yep, that's right.
And this is the greatest timeline in history, because I now potentially have Kamala running for president. And this makes me so infinitely giddy schoolgirl happy that I just can't take it.
So I'm kind of stuck listening to her. She works here in the state of California. That is.
Works.
Well, does whatever politicians do here.
Sucks in wind and a paycheck.
What bothers me, and then the other thing that I see, I'm gonna front load this a little bit. We have Bernie Sanders' Twitter feed. I have Kamala Harris's Twitter feed. I have Elizabeth Warren's. But to be fair, I also have. This is the thing. I didn't sign up to follow people on Twitter based on my own political proclivities. I signed up for all of them because I want to see who the enemy is. And believe me, it's not the people. And it ain't white guys, and it ain't black people, and it's not women. It's these fucks. It's the people that are seeking to continue to rip us in half based on essentially what we have in our pants or how we look to gain power. And Absolutely. This to me is terrifying. And there's two different, there's a Senator Sanders Twitter feed, and then there's it's a Bernie Sanders Twitter feed.
I presume they're both run by him, but one is
one of them is his interns, without a doubt.
His opinions. Yeah.
Well, no, it's just his interns, and it's relentless. They are posting all day. And they have, I think, somewhere along the line of 20 million followers. And what they post all day is what boils down to conflict theory, Marx's ideas of the proletariat and the bourgeoisie. It's constant. It's all day. These are your enemy. The people that have this are your enemy. We need to take it from them to make things fair. Now, I'm not even saying I'm actually painting a very broad picture here. So I'm not even saying that some of that might not be a good idea, or that's not what I'm saying.
All of that is a terrible fucking idea.
That's what I'm saying. So, but
I'll say it for you, because you're the diplomatic and respectful one of us too, and I'm not.
And that's the idea. So my point is that he is a master propagandist.
Absolutely. And
this is why, and the propaganda is, 10 years ago, let's rewind to 10 years again, where I said if, we were going to rip the country apart along lines of the way people look so that we could gain and maintain power and control people, I would have said it was conspiracy theory. Well, what is the best way to go about this? Well, you tell people that they're fellow Americans. You want to control America. Your fellow Americans are your enemy. And if they don't look like you, that makes it even worse. And I'm not just talking about the latest round of white hate. I'm talking about for the longest time it was hate the brown and the black people, which is preposterous.
The pendulum has swung back the other way now.
It has, and it's gaining intensity. The speed at which this is being delivered is kind of terrifying. So I will
be sitting at the front of the bus soon. Back of the bus, not front of the bus. Too much bourbon.
This divide what I'm really worried about is after I saw this stuff where we have all these people on Twitter threatening each other and threatening children, and there were calls to burn the school down. There were calls to shoot these children on sight. There were calls.
That's what I love about the age of social media, is they're just leaving little breadcrumbs for crimes that they potentially want to commit. It's like, you've never heard of operational security, have you? Yeah, let's just go ahead and just say what we're going to do. Well, if we decide to pull our head out of our asses and stop being pussies and actually do it.
Well, Twitter's not doing anything about it. Social media generally doesn't do anything about it.
If you and I were to say something about that, it'd be gone in a heartbeat. But when someone else on the other side says something about it, oh, well, that's free speech, and we have to allow that to stand.
Well, and it's again because it serves the purpose of the powerful. So, man, I really wish I had prepared a little bit for this, because I tend to my thoughts can be so scattered across so many different places that I do this hopping around. Well, if I actually, when I work from notes, that generally doesn't happen. So let's divide the country up so that we can gain power. Let's divide it up, instead of by class, let's do it by the way people look. I look like someone that may have oppressed your ancestors, so I have to be responsible for that. I'm the enemy. You may look like somebody who took my job, for example. So I have to, you have to be responsible for that. And this is going to, it's not going to end well. It never has ended well, and I'm fairly terrified, because when you take news media, well, I see it actually, my own, seriously, that's a good question. Because they have found, the people in power have found end runs around constitutional things like free speech. For example, I think in the last video that I made, I don't know if you watched it or not.
I probably did, unless it's been just within the last couple of days. I didn't have a chance to watch it, but.
Well, I'm making the point in the Verified Hate series of videos that that the Silicon Valley tech giants, Facebook, Google, YouTube, Apple, are subjective about who they ban for saying things that they don't like.
Sure.
They have they actually have hateful conduct policy on Twitter, for example. And if you watch the last video I made, like I said, I synchronized it to music.
If you're talking about part 2 of that, then yes, I watched both part 1 and part 2.
So, and I started that entire thing by hearkening back to the 80s, where, you were much younger than me. I think you're like 10 years younger than me. But I remember the Parents
84.
Music Resource Center, and I remember the religious right.
I remember the Parents
burning.
Music
I mean, there was like giant bonfires burning records, and this stuff gets back to Congress, which has a bunch of religious good old boys that heard some of these lyrics and stuff and started talking about ways to figure out how they could change the free speech, the First Amendment, in order to prevent this stuff. We heard some of that in the last few years about free expression of religion. Even Trump, in his ridiculous campaign promises, was talking about raiding mosques. And I was right there on Facebook going, no, you're not going to raid mosques, and anybody who believes that you are is a fucking idiot. They don't even understand their own country if they think that you're going to go raiding mosques because you want to get them out of neighborhoods and shit. It's not going to happen. So fast forward a little bit.
Because those very same people that are saying that would be yelling and screaming mercilessly if someone were to try to kick a church out of a neighborhood or something or other like that.
This is the thing that kills me, is objectively.
There's no consistency with any fucking body.
There's not, but I can tell you that there has been a balance of power shift. This is my point, is that the religious right did control vast power in the United States through the 80s. Sure. Lost a lot of ground in the 90s, lost even more in the last 20 years. And so what's happening now is that same kind of lust for what boils down to social fascism has been taken up by the left. And I'm watching people go, oh, yeah, well, the right did this, this, and this. I'm sorry. It's not even close anymore. It once was. You did have, asshole Christians bombing abortion clinics and shit, and every once in a while you get some nut that does that kind of stuff. It is not there's no equal there. The right and the left are not equal.
Now you're getting douchebags in skinny jeans punching people in the face with bike locks.
You know what? Even that is still fairly isolated, because now you have the protection of the internet, so that you can spread your vitriol, your hate, your calls for violence and anger as somebody who is doing it in the name of protecting minorities and being virtuous. And so now you can do it.
Commissioner Gordon, light up the virtue signal.
Right. I'm telling you, this is what's happening. So there is a divide, because truly, you really don't have a lot of, and I'm not talking about, idiot 93-year-old conservatives in Congress going, well, gee, a baby from a rape is a gift from God. No, it isn't, you fucking moron.
Yeah.
But these are the dinosaurs that are dying off. There's very, very few young conservatives out there going, we need to blow up this school. We need to go to this school and find these kids that are wearing pussy hats and beat them to death. Right. You don't see that. Now you see a lot of the people on the right making fun of them, telling them that they're idiots. But
I'm not on the right and I make fun of them.
We also don't have too many righties anymore saying, well, we really need to kind of restrict what you're allowed to say. Alyssa Milano, the MAGA hat is the new white hood. No, it isn't, you imbecile. Okay, I happen to have studied the Klan and where they came from, and how much damage and violence and murder that they had committed during their reign of terror. And then, of course, the offshoots.
And there's less than 3,000 Klan members in the entirety of the United States anyways.
Around 5,000, according to the FBI's, I want to say when I checked it last, it was 2014 or 2015. You can get more Girl Scouts selling cookies in front of Safeways across California than you can get people together at a Klan rally. Yeah. The Klan only has any power anymore because people that seek to gain or maintain power invoke their name in order to get votes.
And if I hear one more person say Trump is a fucking Nazi, you're devaluing the term Nazi. Nazis were absolutely atrocious, some of the worst people to ever live. And you're comparing anyone you don't like to them, which is devaluing what they did to 6 million plus people. You're not even 75 fucking years ago.
What's really interesting to me about this too, you're talking about taking the power out of, saying somebody's a Nazi is a very, very serious thing because of that very thing.
Until literally everyone's a Nazi but you.
Or because you say things that run contrary to the to what it is that you're allowed to say as, say, a white person. You're only allowed to say certain things. Everything else is kind of off the table. And then what I hear when I challenge these,
say
anything I want, just like you would, and I would expect everybody else in the country to too. No one should ever be silenced. It is far more dangerous to silence an idiot than to let an idiot speak. Let the idiot speak.
Make him bake the cake for the gays.
This is
if he doesn't want to bake the cake for the gays, maybe the gays would then be happy to know that this person doesn't want to bake a cake for them and not give that person their money and go to someone who is sympathetic for them and say, hey, you support us. You support our way of life. We would like to, in turn, support you and your business for performing a service for us in your own free will, as opposed to government coercion.
I mean, you're singing my song here. And this is so.
And I sing like a dying calf in a hailstorm, so that's fucking saying something.
Actually, the tune you're carrying is pretty damn good for once. So what you asked, to circle back around where I see this going, we will end up with more and more because, like I said, there are now, and the right was unable to change the First Amendment, but now the public square has become government-supported social media. And what I say by that is that, what about there are giant tax subsidies, tax breaks, incentives for Google. There are huge government contracts for Google. Google collects all kinds of information for the government. Facebook, YouTube,
the Amazon cloud.
The big four. The Amazon.
A lot of government entities for data storage and such.
Of course. And so now this is actually, you know, and I know you're actually familiar with this because you read FDR's Folly. This is actually
wonderful book.
It is. This is what fascism actually was. It really wasn't. It didn't have a lot to do with race or nationalism. It did on one level, but it didn't have to do. In fact, you know, Mussolini's Italy, for example, they did not expel Jews. Not until Hitler stabbed Mussolini in the back and rolled on into Italy. Hey, we're friends. No, we're not. We're pointing guns at you. In 1943, they finally expelled Jews because the Nazis insisted on it. But it really was about Italian pride and Italian. But they didn't kick people out of the country en masse until later when the whole system started breaking down. But fascism was about. And it's really kind of tough to pin down because there are so many. Okay, well, I'm sure you and I can agree that the terms socialism and capitalism have also evolved into meaning different things to different people over the last 100 years, right?
Sure. It's like I read someone earlier saying that Hitler did such and such to socialists and all this. And I'm like, did you?
He didn't like communists.
Forget that National Socialism had the word
socialism in it. Well, and see, this is another thing people don't realize because nobody bothers to check. But the ultimate goal of communism was supposed to be a stateless society. So sure. of course, Hitler didn't like that. He wanted a socialist society, but more of a fascist society. He really didn't think much of socialists either. But as they were at the time, I don't want to contradict myself. Point being is that fascism there's a bunch of, actually, I think it was George Carlin who said, no, we're not talking about, you know, Nazi fascism. We're talking about smiley face fascism, where we decide what's best for everything that you do, how you should be talking to people, the best things to take. In fact, we'll take care of your kids.
Well, it takes me back to that. It takes me back to that quote. Political correctness is fascism with a smile.
Yeah, that's right on the money, because fascism was about the politicization of pretty much anything social at all. Yeah. So, for example, I just read an article 2 weeks ago on how you can have you can have environmentally friendly sex. I was like, really? Who writes this crap?
Yeah, what? Don't use a rubber?
Well, that was one. There's a bunch of different things in there. It was really kind of like, wow. So now
wrap your dick in a leaf.
So to move a little bit forward, so now we have the arbiters of our social discourse are the powers of the corporate entities that have partnered with government, which is by definition economic fascism. That's what that is. When you have, you know, when the government paves the way for corporate power to do the bidding of the government external to the rule of law, which they do, then you have that's fascism. So now we have our public square is this type of communication, right, that we're doing right now. So now you don't
Google.
Now now you don't have to have a constitutional convention in which we determine that we're going to change the First Amendment, because instead we can shut people up because everybody communicates this way now. So this is what they did to Alex Jones.
This here is the exact reason why I stopped giving a fuck about the Constitution 2 to 3 years ago. Because the Constitution is completely powerless to stop anything that's happening. It's words on paper that doesn't mean shit to anyone outside of a few people who, despite their best efforts, can't do anything to protect it.
Well, and I'm going to start agreeing with that idea more and more as what you asked me where I see this going, and this is the first piece of where I see it going, is that this corporate power can now work outside of the Constitution to quiet us. So then I posit this question. So what it is that is people in general that are being silenced on social media are because they say things that the people in charge don't like. So, for example, I think I told you about this, and I'll use this as an example again. Canadian feminist leader. So yeah. she's a woman.
We talked about this. Yep.
And she is also a lesbian, and she's also a feminist. So now we got intersectionality crossing 3 different lines, right? She said on Twitter that she wouldn't date a trans woman because a trans woman is just a man.
Right.
Boom, ban. In the meantime, we have, I literally have, when I did the research for my last video, when I did the verified hate video, the part 2, 900 tweets about raping and murdering white women. I had, I think, on order of 650 tweets about killing the president. I mean, and it just goes on and on and on. So it's pretty clear that these rules are applied subjectively.
Yeah. If any of that were to be flipped to the exact opposite, there would be riots in the streets. So
one of my favorite things that I saw was that we talked about Sarah Jeong from the New York Times and all of her just horrific, bigoted tweets that she can get away with.
Yet the New York Times is still somehow the quote unquote most trusted source in journalism.
I think that may have changed.
I hope so.
I believe, and I'm actually not going to just quote this without looking it up, but they have posted a lot of retractions over the last, especially since Trump's been in office. Every week it's this is it, Trump's going down, we've got it. And then very quietly the next day, after they do some journalistic work, they post a retraction. So
yeah, they still allow people like Paul Krugman to write columns for them.
You know, this is now we've weaponized economists.
I'll take sentences I never thought I'd hear for 1,000 hours.
Right? Actually, it's funny now that I've said it out loud. It sounds totally fucking preposterous, doesn't it? Well, yeah, we've weaponized economists. It's.
Oh, I'm gonna strap a nuke to Bob Murphy, and I'm just gonna send him to Soviet Russia.
So seriously, think about that, man. So we got these guys now going, well, gee, this is the way it should be. So, hey, with my credentials as a scientist, I'm going to sell you that this is the way we should be doing it. What's really fascinating to me is, I guess it's never occurred to you either, huh?
No, it hasn't. And I fucking love you for that.
Yeah,
that's the quote of the night. That's worth everything, man.
Dude, this is why I had to get off social media, brother. Because I spend all my time thinking about shit like this, dude. This stuff haunts me. I can't fucking sleep because I keep thinking. It's like, okay, now we've turned an economist into a rock star for the left. He's a fucking dork. He's a nerd.
The thing is that gets me is like he tried so hard and changed his ideas with little nuances here and there. And you could tell it was blatantly obvious that he was doing everything that he could to weasel his way into Hillary's cabinet.
Well,
and then she didn't get elected, and he doubled down on it.
He doubled down on it. And this, do you know? Oh man, we keep jumping all over the place, but I got to tell you,
I don't care. It's all fucking interesting.
Well,
fuck formats.
Well, you know what though, and I should say this. I'm going to interject this, and we'll get back to it. But I started looking into like pages, YouTube channels that I really like that do these kinds of shows and commentary and stuff that have like, hundreds of thousands of people. They used to pretty much broadcast any piece of shit that they thought of. When you go back to like, when you look through their videos and have it sorted by date and go to the oldest ones, it's like, wow, we're trying to figure out so I was thinking, you know what, man, I'm just going to do this every day if I can, just to get to, it's a creative process.
Sure.
So
you make it.
In any case, yeah, Krugman, especially, it's funny when you read what Mussolini wrote on corporate originally, corporatism and fascism are hand in hand. Because that's the essence of governmental fascism.
And I love how someone told me one time that Italian fascism wasn't real fascism, and I'm like, well,
they invented it.
They fucking invented it.
They invented it. What are you talking about? So, in any case, so we are surrounded by fascists, and mostly on they used to be kind of right-wing religious fascists. Now they're left-wing virtue signaling fascists instead. So, you shouldn't be allowed. You shouldn't be allowed to say that.
Antifa stands against fascism. Antifa is fascism.
They are.
Let me say it again for the children in the back.
Wait a minute. Hold on a second. What we need in the lower right-hand corner, the lower third on the right, is somebody signing this shit just in case the deaf people can't figure it out.
I'll do it like that guy at famous South African leader. Help me out here.
Mandela.
Thank you. Mandela's funeral, the guy who stood up there in sign language for
my
Obama,
God, that
came out like 2 years later that
he wasn't saying anything. Oh my God, that was hilarious. It was hilarious.
Here, I'll do it now.
Hey, you're sitting there doing stuff like this. You're doing stuff like this, you know. Too much metal for one hand, you know.
Oh, Jesus.
Oh, man. So this whole idea too is gaining so much power that we also, so now we're actually, there are people that are wanting to mandate teaching children that there are 53 different genders, for example, in school. And
let me hold up my Richard Nixon signs. I'm sorry.
Which again, frankly, you know, I don't have any sort of prejudicial views against anybody.
Live however you want.
But truly, I want everybody to be as free as they possibly can be.
Exactly. But for the party that talks about, when it comes to global warming, we're the party of science. When it comes to
you're not.
We're the party of science. When it comes to genders,
it's more. It's actually far more than that too. When it comes down to it. So, and that's something.
And I think it's like 78 genders at this point.
Is it? And it's fine. If you want to, truly, I do not have a problem with anybody wanting to identify. I don't care.
I don't either. I don't.
What I have a problem with is that it is then mandated by law that we have to use whatever words that are being forced.
It's like the bullshit with Jordan Peterson in Canada.
Exactly. And you know, Canada actually passed that law.
Right.
So they no longer are a free speech country.
Right.
Now they have compelled speech laws on the books, which is terrifying. Yeah. Fortunately, that can't happen here. So instead, what they'll do is, it can't
believe in the Constitution.
Oh no, it can't constitutionally. There would be way too many challenges to it. So
you're a funny guy, Christian.
Well,
that's why I keep you around.
Hey, at the same time, I still believe that Greek democracy worked until it fell apart. I believe that the Roman.
Hold an example for you. This right here has more than 7 rounds. This right here is illegal in a whole bunch of states.
Yeah, mine too.
The Second Amendment has nothing about round count or any type of firearm whatsoever.
No, these are rounds.
Everything.
Well,
they're illegal in a lot of places. I can't have this in like 10 states.
So let's talk about this too then, because this is right to my point. We've just discussed the fact that social media can silence speech, right? And because of the vast reach of social media, that has massive implications for people. It's no longer you're not allowed to stand in a public square and tell people what you think. This is the public square. And if the people in charge don't like what you think, they can make you shut up.
Hear ye.
Let's talk about guns. Did you buy any of your firearms with a credit card or with a debit card by any chance? You probably did.
Probably all of them. Well, so one I didn't. But
the New York Times in December, the first week of December of 2018, wrote a piece where they were saying that the credit card companies are now considered to be, at least by the opinion of this writer, complicit in mass shootings because the products of Visa and MasterCard and PayPal.
Like spoons are complicit in obesity.
Yeah, right. Well, you know, they are. And cars are complicit in people drunk driving too. Because cars can be complicit and so can spoons. Just ask your favorite spoon. You know, they're just waiting for that moment where you're sleeping to pounce. Feed you some ice cream. So
are you complicit, Knife?
So what?
Are you complicit? Tell me.
Hey, I got one of those here too. Got it in Germany.
It's illegal.
Still buy them there. Oh yeah, it is. I used it to open letters.
It's illegal in Minnesota, and I carry it anyways.
This woman, this writer, was advocating for laws that force the credit card companies to police what we're spending, what we're using to buy, using the credit cards to buy. They should be keeping track of how much ammunition or firearms that we're buying because they don't like it or something. So
that's fine. I just bought a bunch of ammo and AK mags on the black market, and that was cool.
You know, it's funny. I have I have guns here. I've got a couple, but I don't need them. But
I don't need them. But you know,
that wasn't my point. Was going to be that one of my favorite things though is that I can have them.
Mm-hmm.
So what then? And you know, I hate slippery slope arguments because generally I consider them to be fallacious. So you have to separate them. But when you create a law that says that this company can be compelled by the force of law to keep track of what it is people are spending and then send red flags to the FBI or whatever if they don't like what it is you're buying.
And this is exactly why I despise Bitcoin as a store of value, but I fucking love Bitcoin when it comes to buying things
because they
might not otherwise be allowed to buy or whatever.
Well, and I guarantee you, as soon as the Jaime Dimon or any one of his caliber in banking figures out that that they're going to be that the government's going to try and regulate it, they'll jump right in and screw it all up. Fortunately, because of the blockchain technology, it's going to be pretty much next to impossible, but they'll try and figure it out anyway. So now we have
answer this for me, because I don't legitimately know. Is it a government-protected monopoly that keeps MasterCard and Visa in place, and to a lesser extent American Express and Discover? Or
of course.
Okay, so no other companies are really allowed to come in and do anything?
It's not that. It's that who can afford it? Well, the people that are already doing it, because the regulations are so deep, they are so broad, they are so expensive. That the only, if I wanted
a government protected monopoly. Gotcha.
If I wanted to start a neighborhood bank, I can't. Have you noticed that there are no neighborhood banks anymore? They aren't. They're gone.
I bank with a small credit union.
And your credit union is probably owned by Wells Fargo or Bank of America. And if you were to look at their charter, who charters them as a bank, that changed a number of, I want to say 5 or 6 years ago, the credit unions became branch banks for these bigger banks. They had to. And so, and all of this in the name of protecting us from Michael Milken, from the savings and loan crisis, which you were probably 8 years old when that thing took place, but it was kind of the 2008 real estate debacle of the 80s. Same kind of thing, where you had investors that figured out how to basically to game the system to the point where they put some of these banks in such a place that the government had to bail them out or close them down. And instead they closed them down. And then, instead George Bush and Barack Obama bailed them out. I bet you were doing the same thing I was. I was screaming, let them fail. Let them burn to the ground.
There's literally
not give
nothing
these
that's
people my money.
Too big to fail.
And then there was the arguments that, oh God, the world economy, you know what? It'll bounce back. It always does. And look, it did. And how long did it take? About 10 years. So instead, we kind of cemented the position of these banks as arms of the government, which is, again, fascist. That is fascist. You can't operate as a bank in this country unless, you have unless you got the governmental stamp of approval, man. Ain't gonna happen. Now, I know you and I know
my credit union is independently owned. Thank you very much.
Is it older than, say, 1980 then?
1939.
Okay, that's probably why. There are a few left. So I admit that is true. The one that I was with
I was closing my fucking account tomorrow.
The one that I
were owned by Wells Fargo.
Oh, you just checked,
Bank of America. Damn right, I just checked.
Mine ended up becoming a branch of Wells Fargo. So, and then you could see it happening too over, that they started that process in like 2009 or something. It was the Federal Employees Credit Union. And then they kind of opened it up to everybody else. Then they went through a couple of different corporate changes. And during one of those corporate changes, it ended up being a branch of Wells Fargo. And my fees and the products available and everything else changed right along with it. And I left. I have one of the last types of neighborhood banks in California. It's Fremont Bank. There's like, 9 branches or something. There's not a lot of them. But they've also been around since the 1950s, I want to say. And they still have that neighborhood bank feel.
Sure.
But here's where I think you and I are going to differ on, and I do believe in sensible regulation. It is a necessity. I do not believe in, quote, unfettered capitalism, at least in so much as what capitalism, what it's become. Kind of like the way some
capitalism,
guns, the IRS,
you and me, the market.
Well, to a degree. But at the same time, you and I don't have any market for, say, hazardous waste storage. That's a government market. You see what I'm saying? I can decide not to do it. Well, okay, so would you be a part of the market that develops and sells components to aerospace components to government contractors for NASA.
No, because if I were free market, I wouldn't sell shit to the government.
In which case, this is where the arguments that say, you know, the market will take care of all this fall apart, because you and I don't participate in that market. Now, you know, for somebody who just said that, you know, the Constitution is dead, which I largely agree. We're a post-constitutional America, there's no doubt. So I've heard people say, oh yeah, well, you elected the representatives who do that for you. And I'm going, no, I didn't. I didn't elect a single representative to make those kinds of backdoor deals with my tax money. No, I didn't.
Yeah, the only time that you would have elected a representative to do those backdoor deals for you would have been if SpongeBob would have magically gotten elected.
In which case he would have actually said free aerospace for everybody. So, you know, he was a happy guy. He wouldn't do anything to make us unhappy. So this is where now I am a small businessman, as you know. I own a business and I do business mostly with small businesses. And so that is capitalism in its purest form. You know, I design and build and maintain computer networks for small to medium-sized businesses. You know, I've done it in multiple states, but pretty much here in the San Francisco Bay Area. So the people I do business with and I agree on terms, what they expect, what I expect, and what payment looks like. And then we sign a contract, shake hands or whatever. And then the services are delivered, and the outcome is that both parties are supposedly better for the transaction. That's capitalism in its purest form. That exists at this level down here. So when you just mentioned, it wasn't Robert Reich, another
Bill Kristol,
another one of my favorite weaponized dork economists. You know,
I just wonder if he's Robert Reich the third.
Man, that's pretty. God damn, I don't think so. But if he was, man, I'd like to shake his dad's hand.
I'd fuck that. I want to shake his grandpa's hand.
Right? Yeah. You have these guys that are like, well, we have to, you know, tinker with this, and this has to be offset by that, blah 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 blah. And when I think about why that would be, when capitalism is generally very simple, you know, like I just said, it's consenting parties in a transaction. You know, there's nobody who, so how come we have to do all of this shit? I would think that, again, there are complexities to large business that I don't understand. But I would also think that many of those complexities come from government. The more the government gets involved, the more they fuck shit up. The more they seek to fix something, the greater catastrophe they create by fixing it. So now with the foundations in place, this is the thing that I hate about Congress, man. Hey, this is our pet project, so we're going to make a bunch of laws that deal with this. How hard is it to get the laws off the books once they're on? It's near impossible. So what you have to do is create another set of complex laws that deals with the complexities of the one that they're building on top of, and you just keep doing this with it, to the point where now the economy is so complicated that you have to have all of these dorks and nerds out there stumping for the left's version of the economy or the right's version of the economy. And so we do need, I'm sorry, man, we're going to have regulated markets. Mine isn't. My market, what I do is not regulated. And it doesn't need to be. There are laws that prevent my clients from screwing me over and vice versa.
The laws are for thee, not for me.
No, what I'm saying is that the laws that govern the business that I do on this level are for all. The laws that govern business on the level where you have corporatist entities that are really just arms of the government anymore, those are actually to benefit the people up there, not to benefit us. They don't protect us. They, you know, this is why, hey, we need I love this living wage thing. That's a crack up. It was reported 2 weeks ago that you're going to love this, man. You know, I live in the San Francisco Bay Area.
I'm not going to love it. I'm going to hate everything about it because I know where you're going.
I live in the San Francisco Bay Area. It has now been determined.
I've never known a rich person before.
Well, you do now, according to at least according to the California economy here.
Aren't you just above the poverty line?
No, actually, fortunately, I'm well above it. But the poverty line in the San Francisco Bay Area, low income,
like 112,000 or something,
117,900. $117,000 a year qualifies you as a low-income family.
I made 50 plus last year.
That's pretty good.
3.
You're above the national average.
I would consider myself pretty well above the poverty line. I mean, I'm not shitting in fucking high cotton, but I'm not farthing through silk, but I'm doing all right.
No, that's actually a really good living, you know, in any other part of the country. The same report, it was, and I'm this is, you know, I'm going to do a video on this thing, showed a house in Fremont, which is about 40-minute drive from where I live. That was literally, they called it a fire sale because it was mostly burnt, this house. And there was a sign on the, there was a note on the listing that said, enter the home at your own risk. They listed it at $995,000 and it sold for.
Is that the one that you shared that they were talking about? They were basically just buying the land, not the house, because they were going to tear it down because of the neighborhood or the area that it was in. Rather, is that the one that you shared? Like
that was part. That was part. Yeah, that was part of the same news report. Yeah. So it's terrifying.
When the fuck are you going to get out of that goddamn hellhole?
You know, the thing about it is, there's a couple of things. First of all, I've you know, my family is here. I've been here most of my life. Kim's family is here. I have a kid that graduates high school in 2 years, and then I'm sending him to college. I want to get out of here. Well, they still let me, because I'm really very concerned that at some point or another, I'll sell my house, and you know, and I got to tell you, man, you want a nice, solid investment. Buy real estate in the Bay Area if you can afford it, because
I can't.
You know, the national average. This is the other thing that's fairly. I mean, it's a good thing if it stays this way, but I don't have any reason to believe it will.
They're respectful, Tom.
My house has gone up nearly 27% in 2 years. I mean, that's absolutely staggering numbers. The rest of the country is like, you know, generally comfortable between 3 and 8%. Houston is an exception, so is New York. You know, there's some exceptions, but not anywhere near as high as it is here. And what's really funny about that is that we have the highest homeless rate in the country. We are rated the 50th place in opportunity, 50th in quality of life. We have more poor people after expenses than in any other.
Just spray them with a hose; they'll go away.
That's what they want. Some of the rich people in Venice Beach want to do. You know, some of the movie producers and all the muckety mucks that live in, you know, their average, the median house in cost in Venice Beach is $1.9 million. That's the middle. So, you know, you get a little cracker box for $1.5 million, you know, and then they start getting nice when you get closer to $2 million. And you got all these people, all these, you know, Hollywood, you know, generally they work in Hollywood and show business of some sort or another. I'm not talking about all famous people. That Venice Beach is where you find, you know, it's kind of like Malibu in that regard. They have one of the largest homeless encampments in the country. One of the people, and I'm giving away too much because this is what's in the next video. One of the people had begun circulating a petition amongst, you know, the other people, homeowners in the neighborhood, where they wanted to just raise the money. These people have plenty of money to put the homeless people on a bus and send them to a different city. That was their solution. I'm not kidding, dude. It's really kind of amazing to live here around all of this virtuous, you know, I'm privileged because I have a penis and the melanin content in my skin. So unless I am participating in dismantling the structure of you know, structural racism here, then I am just a racist by proxy. These people are the ones that are going, oh, we don't want them in our neighborhood. That's terrible. It does terrible things for the property values. Wow, that's staggering. To me, that's absolutely fucking unbelievable. And somehow, you know, that's the other thing. We have the highest taxes in the country, and the highest, and what they promise. Is this not what the left promises us? We're going to raise your taxes, and we'll use that money for altruistic purposes that will keep people from being homeless and provide greater opportunity and better education. We're 37th in the country in education, 37th. And we spend, where's all the money going? The new, you know, Gavin Newsom, gotta love Gavin Newsom, new governor. has also signed up to provide free health care to everybody in the state, including people who are here illegally. You didn't know any of this, huh?
No, I knew it. I just chose to ignore most of it because it infuriates me and makes me not even want to visit that shithole, much less live there.
It's pretty staggering, Brent. I mean, it's really staggering. You should see what my property taxes are. They're absolutely unconscionable for the quality of education. You know, property taxes. And this is something they say. Oh well, you know, your zip code should not dictate the quality of your education. I agree, but it does, and still the education sucks. So, you know, I'd really hate to see it in worse zip codes. So the other thing, you're going to love this too. If you're not illegally here and you don't participate in California's version of Obamacare or whatever it is that I mean, I've only given it a cursory glance to be very fair, but we will be paying a penalty also. But that's only if we're here legally. I wish I was making this shit up. The tax on drinking water, a month or so ago, they actually wanted to tax our text messages.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, and then, you know, there was so much outcry, but they went, okay, this is a bad idea. They stopped. That's not going to happen. At least on the surface, it's not. They might.
14-year-old girls everywhere screamed their collective little hearts out.
Well, they also, one of the suggestions was they make these taxes retroactive back 5 years. But I guarantee you that, see, this is what they'll do too. This is the thing that kills me. It's like, yes, we're going to tax you and we'll have this wonderful paradise in California. And I am not even a right winger. People think I am. I'm not. The right wing to me is just as pathetic, because they're still selling a narrative rather than connecting with the ideas that serve the people rather than serving the people who vote for them. You know what I mean? And this is why, you know, I'm sick of defending why I won't vote.
To say something like I believe Mr. Leahy would say on Trailer Park Boys, the right wing and the left wing, Randy, are part of the same shitbird.
I've been tinkering with the idea of doing a video. I wish you were out here because we would do this. You'd love it. I wanted to do like a campaign commercial where, you know, there's the man on the street talking about, you know, this new candidate, blah, 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 and he's for this and that and the other thing. And the camera cuts to the candidate, which is a pile of dog shit with a flag in it. And then we interview people who are walking by. You know, so I understand that you're going to vote for, you know, I hadn't come up with any creative names for the dog shit yet. Well, can you explain why? Well, that's because this is brown dog shit. And brown dog shit is, you know, is more virtuous than the shit that comes from white dogs. You know, that was my idea. I haven't fleshed it fully out yet, but that was, and so I was going to put like a little Republican flag in one pile of dog shit and a little Democrat, you know, an elephant and a jackass in the piles of dog shit and say, this is what you're voting for. You know, you can disagree with me, and many people do, but this is, for me.
And here's the difference between you and I and everyone else. You can disagree with us, and we won't hit you in the face with a fucking eye clock.
And you know, while I find hate speech to be reprehensible, I will protect your right with my life for you to do it.
Absolutely.
I'm sorry,
call you a cunt and say that you're an idiot and that you should, you know, not be a fucking moron, but if you want to say things that I find reprehensible, go right ahead.
Then what I'm going to do is let you know that I find them to be reprehensible, but
exactly.
To try and shut you up, to tell you that, you know, so, you know, man, digression. Let's circle back.
Yeah.
So what I was getting to
probably be our last thing though, because it's
agreed.
Almost 10 o'clock my time, and I need to go to bed.
Agreed. So let me wrap this up with the where I was headed with the end runs around the Constitution. Okay, so we just talked a little bit about how, since the public square is largely electronic and virtual, the government partnerships with these massive companies will ensure that speech that isn't popular, isn't approved, etc., can be silenced for the most part, and then they can still be, hey, we still have a First Amendment, and we're still protecting the rights of private companies. Great. Okay. Well, we'll let that be your fucking story anyway. So then we talked about how it is, yeah, man, we can use the power of the banks not to allow, let's say I needed I wanted to open a gun store, and we've heard about this. We've heard this happening. This is actually happening. So I need to get a loan to buy it.
It is illegal to have a gun store in the city of Minneapolis.
They had that in Chicago too. Remember?
Yeah, you cannot have one. There was one that was grandfathered in, and to my knowledge, they eventually closed.
Frankly, I don't have a problem with local municipalities saying, "Look, we don't want a gun store here." I really don't. You know, if that's the will of the local people, fine. What I'm talking about is banks that are being pressured politically to not loan money to people who want to open gun shops, or maybe even credit card companies that are being pressured to monitor whether or not people are buying things that we don't like. So that's number two. Finally, last one. Have you heard about China's social credit system?
Yes, I just saw that a couple weeks ago.
Terrifying. So because things are funded publicly, you know, like public transportation, the public airways, hey, the internet, it's actually, you know, while Comcast owns the majority of the backbone that travels across the country, and so does AT&T, et cetera, they are federally regulated. There's also federal funds involved. So let's say I start spewing hate speech, which is, by the way, a made-up term. There is no legal precedent whatsoever for it that's ever been discussed by the Supreme Court, ever. It's just a bunch of legal professors got together and said, hey, we're going to invent a new term.
Was it even legal professors or a bunch of fucking moronic goddamn college students?
I think it was a combination of both. So because it is essentially a public airwave, could they now actually make it so that I'm not allowed to use the internet? So let's talk about the next thing, the next big thing that's happening right now, and this is actually in my business, so I see it every day. Cloud services are pretty much going, they're heading in the direction of taking over not only local storage, because you really don't need much anymore. You know, you used to be able to, I need a 4 terabyte hard drive. Shit, mine's 256 gigabytes now. And everything I store on the Microsoft Cloud, because it's just it works fine, and I can get it everywhere I go. So you pay a subscription fee for that. Right. So what's happening with licensing for the Windows OS, the Android OS, and Apple OS is that now, instead of like buying a physical license that belongs to you, now even in the language of the license, they can revoke it, they can blah, 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 but they didn't have a lot of power to revoke your license. You know, they're going to show up at your door, hey, this is the Microsoft license cops, and we want you to give us back our Windows license because we don't like you.
Get off my lawn.
Well, what's going to happen now, and it's already happening, and the structure's in place, and it already works this way largely, is that you subscribe to your license. So if your license subscription runs across
like Office 365 or whatever the fuck it is.
Yeah, even Windows 10 now, like for example, I'm actually a Microsoft partner. My Windows 10, I didn't buy it. It comes with my Office 365 subscription. So, and which is fine, because every time a new version comes out, I get the new version. I don't have to uninstall it. I don't have to reinstall. I don't have to go through all this crap.
What happens if you don't re-up your 365? Does it break your computer, or do you just stop getting updates?
Well, as it stands right now, is that you have a long grace period, but ultimately you would have to buy a local license, and then you would convert your license into a local rather than a subscription license. For me, it makes a hell of a lot of sense to do it this way, and for most people, frankly, it makes more sense than doing it the other way. So, in terms of efficiency and effectiveness. But again, my premise what I'm positing here is that because that license is communicated to your machine over publicly regulated networks, if I'm saying things that the government doesn't like, can they actually pull my license? Here's another thing. Pretty soon, you won't be logging into your computer at all anymore. You'll be using facial recognition and things like that. My Surface Pro, Surface Book laptop right here, I just look at it and it logs me in. That's also part, that information is stored in the cloud. And so, again, in China's social credit system, we could say that if you say something that the government finds to be offensive, They can make it so that your facial recognition no longer works and you're locked out of not only your computer, but the social media networks that is the public square, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You follow where I'm going with this, right? Now, this sounds terribly dystopian and conspiracy laden, and it's not. These are the ways that we can get around our constitutional rights. Is that I don't have a constitutional rights to Microsoft services at all. I don't have that.
Protection.
I don't have that. I don't have a right to their services. Now, I'm sure that creative lawyers will say, well, wait a minute, you're actually causing harm to my client based on some. Great, let's lock it up in legal battles. And then generally the government has an endless supply of money in legal battles, don't they? And if the battle is a government battle, we're fucked. And so you will comply. You will not say hateful things unless, you know, you are considered to be a marginalized person. Then you can say hateful things because you, for whatever reason, socially you're owed the right to be able to do that. Until it reaches a certain point, then it's like, all right, you know, we're going to have to slap you down a little bit, you know. But you really, you know, this is, so it's funny, I see you contemplating this. You haven't really thought about this though.
Or option 3, I just choose not to care, and what are the repercussions come.
Well, and unfortunately
for me, I'm not to that point yet.
Well, and so where that ends up though is how are you going to do, let's say that a mandate by the government, we talked about the banks earlier, mandate by the bank says that they have to provide maximum electronic services and minimal face-to-face services due to, you know, the fact that the FDIC guarantees them guarantees depositors. So we found that individuals walking into banks take up more of the time, reducing the efficiency, blah, 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 blah. So now, Brent, you have also said some things that we don't like, and you have magazines for your guns that aren't legal. So we're going to kind of lock you out of the system. And so how are you going to go do your banking?
They make mattresses for that I can cut holes in and store cash in.
You're missing my point. You know, you're actually fighting back against
dodging your point because your point pisses me off.
Because it's fucking terrifying, isn't it?
Yeah.
And this isn't, like I said, this isn't some conspiracy bullshit. Conspiracy bullshit would be something stupid like, you know, Trump is going to run around the Constitution and make it illegal to print things in newspapers. That's fucking stupid because you can't. He can't do that. He doesn't have the power to do it. He's never had the power to do it. But this is also, think about it this way. You and I have in the past discussed the incredible abuses of power by the CIA and the FBI. And it's funny because 3 weeks ago, I'm sure you remember this, I said, here's a little history lesson for you all. I want you to present factual data on how many times in incidents in the past where the FBI has set up politicians or civil rights leaders or, you know, business leaders to look bad to the point where they have their movements, their party, their candidacy has collapsed. And immediately, you know, there was 2 people who spoke up and said, oh, well, that's conspiracy stuff. And it's not. These are well documented and accepted by the mainstream.
Northwoods.
Yes, it is. It's exactly like that. But in this case, for example, they didn't like what Martin Luther King Jr. was saying much. So they bugged his room and tapped his phone because they knew that he was cheating on his wife, and constantly he had a terrible sex addiction problem. So
he wasn't a great man. He said some great things. He did some great things.
I think he was a great leader.
I don't think he was a great. I don't know.
As far as a leader, the
jury's still out on that for me.
Think of it in terms of leadership. I think his leadership was right there, man. But he was also
a lot of what he did, and I respect a lot of what the change he wanted to bring about. But I don't necessarily respect him as a person, if that makes sense.
Well, and you don't have, see, that's the nice thing too, is that you just said the right words. For whatever reason, we want to hold up these people like they're not people. They're fucking people. So
we want to lionize them.
Right, we do. We want to turn them into saints that are, you know, that are our heroes. They're not, man. These are public servants who are no longer public servants. They are supposed to be working for us, and they don't work for us. They work for themselves. They also work for whatever interests have joined forces with the government in, you know, starting with essentially, I mean, we could probably go back to the way that Congress provided incentives for the railroads, you know, Northwest and Southern Pacific Railroad, you know, so that those, they had the blessing of Congress to go steal land and kill people if they needed to. Just get out of my way. Whoever wins gets the contract and gets the bonus, right? So, but
then you look at the Great Northern Railway, which made money hand over fist for years until it was sold to Amtrak, and then lost a fuck ton of money.
But even that wasn't baked into the law. You know, it was just here. You know, we're going to write this and we'll provide you with this, that, and the other thing. It wasn't baked into the law until FDR. He came along and went, "Wow, Mussolini's got some great ideas." And then he wrote Mussolini and said, "Hey, I love you." And Mussolini, as you know, wrote back and said, "Oh, I love you too." You know, they were wonderful pen pals, and they just loved each other's ideas. And Mussolini, I believe, it was even in the book, right, where Mussolini sent FDR a copy of his book, and he signed it for him, and he inscribed something like, "It's wonderful to see that you have been the first person to bring fascism to America." So what we're looking at right now,
again, he's lionized as being one of the great American leaders.
Well, I will give him credit for a couple of things, and I'll see, this is,
I'll give him credit that he died.
Well, we'll wrap it up on this, okay? And this is one of the things that I've been wanting to say for a long time. I love over the last few years that we've been hearing about those stupid Trump supporters, and we've been hearing about those stupid Hillary supporters. Why would you be a supporter of any of these assholes? Yeah. That essentially means that even when they do shit you don't agree with, that's extra principle for you, that's outside of what it is that you feel is principled, that is ethical, that is proper, that is best for everybody, you still support them because you're a fucking imbecile. You don't think for yourself. Stop doing this. Why would I support Trump now?
The bump stock ban. Well, it's just bump stocks, man. If Obama had done it, they would be going ballistic.
Fair enough. That I was going to say, you know, I haven't really given it much thought, but your point is well taken, because if Obama had done that, it would be, "Oh, that's it, man. He's coming after your guns. Second Amendment, it's over, man."
Yeah. But Trump did, and instead,
Trump didn't.
No, he's just playing like 75-degree chess, man. You just gotta if he does this, then Congress won't come after the rest of our guns. And
no, that's not how this works.
So, and see, that's a wonderful point. I will support things that Trump does that I agree with. That's it. I am not going to wholesale support Trump. I don't have to. And for me to
shouldn't wholesale support any politician.
No,
any time ever.
And because we do, they get to do shit like make deals with the most powerful corporations on the planet to watch us for them, because they can't do it. They're not supposed to. You know, they're not supposed to be spying on us. Instead, these companies give us little license agreements that say, "Hey, we can spy on you and collect all your information." And the government has to get a warrant to get it from Google, unless they simply say, "Hey, Google, can you give us this?" And Google's, "Sure, here you go." They're under no obligation not to. They don't have to say no. So when you begin putting these things together, I ask, do you feel stupid yet? You should.
You took all that time to make that graphic so you could do that, you magnificent fucking bastard. I love you.
It worked, didn't it?
Here, I'll point to it too.
In fact, you know what, dude? I'll send you. I'm gonna make us a couple of t-shirts.
Oh, speaking of t-shirts, you were talking about the PMRC earlier.
Yeah.
Did you see my Frank Zappa graphic that I had made? That's going to go on t-shirts?
Dude, I loved it. And then the Beavis and Butthead things you and Chris Rifkin.
I didn't make that, but yeah, no, the Frank Zappa thing was commissioned by me.
Oh,
I didn't make it because I can't draw what the fuck. But I paid a buddy of mine who is a great artist to make it, and that will be going on t-shirts.
It was brilliant, man. This is genius. Do you see the? You probably can't see it on your screen, but the CNN logo is in there. The Fox News logo is in there. The BuzzFeed.
Your head's not that big.
Well, depends on who you
I see the Fox News logo and I see the CNN logo. I don't see the others.
And MSNBC is kind of in the middle. You see where it's like rainbow colored.
Yeah, but I can't see that. I can't see that. But I mean, CNN's right behind your head there, and Fox News is directly to the other side of it. I see that.
I wanted to make sure that people, because like you said, we started this whole thing, and you were talking about, oh, those idiots at Fox News. And I'm going, what? Show me one that's any different. They say shit you don't like, so you find one that says shit you do like. Do you feel stupid yet? I think that's good. You know, and I haven't talked to Caffrey yet, but I'm going to, because what I want to do with this is that, you know, we'll do the weekly Do You Feel Stupid Yet thing. And Brent's going to have his own segment called It Pisses Me Off. And then we'll use Caffrey's music.
Is it going to be a segment or a manifesto?
It'd be more like an encyclopedia.
I'm just going to pull a various firearm, like a random firearm out every week and just lay it on the desk and rant for an hour about things that I hate.
Man, we got to keep it, you know, you need to get creative. Trying to, you know, express something that pisses you off in 5 minutes or less can be challenging.
It can't.
You see
be
what
done.
I'm saying? It can be.
And
so I really like the idea, you know, like, you know, you'd be like, I like the idea. You know,
I find it hard to express things that piss me off in one breath.
Well, like I said, you know, we've got a long way to go if we're going to turn this into something interesting. It's just, these are just my ideas. I mean, I don't know if you want to participate in that or not, but I thought it was funny.
Yeah.
So
I mean, like,
we got to keep this.
This is a piece of the Berlin Wall.
I
kind of want to take it out of this container and pee on it.
Hang on, I got something too. This is a piece of coal from the debris field in the Titanic.
Well, then.
It's actually kind of cool, isn't it?
I mean, you know.
I got a little certificate here, too, that says that it's the real deal. And it came from the Titanic Society, so I have no reason to doubt, you know.
Just whatever you do with it, don't let go, Jack.
Jack, you're going to get a lump of coal for Christmas, Jack. Anyway, with that, I'll let you go to bed. But good discussion and debate. And it was also, it's good practice, because I was able to I decided this is what I wanted to talk about tonight. And while it took an hour to get 4 pieces of it out, at least I got it there. So maybe I'll do this better next time.
No, I like this whole Do You Feel Stupid Yet? We should do it, you know, probably once a week or so. And I'd just like to sign off by saying, hey, everybody, if you don't agree with me, go fuck yourself.
That is, I mean, that's, Walter Cronkite couldn't have said it better. Seriously, man.
And that's the way the cookie crumbles.
Right. But in his case, and for any of you who don't believe me, you can go fuck yourselves. Or if you were Dan Rather, you could say, if you don't like what I have to say, then go fuck yourselves. Or something. That was more like almost a foghorn leghorn. I'll work on it. Yeah. I got it. Wait a minute. James Mason. If you don't like what I have to say, Mr. Pendleton, you can go fuck yourself.
I mean, if you don't like what I have to say, we could always go up in that helicopter and I could be shot at by sniper fire. Oh, wait, no, none of that.
Sniper fire. Oh, yeah, right. We landed under sniper fire. Yeah, because that's what they would do. With the Secretary of State, they would be sure to put it right down where there was sniper fire.
Unless they were trying to do it on purpose.
I was going to say, maybe
blame them for.
Maybe, yeah. Well, I'm not going to call it. See, that's the one place I'm not going to cross over into that territory, because that's what I bitch at these people on social media for doing.
I will.
Well, yeah. You'll get.
I say the things you won't. You'll get there. You'll get there.
No, I say them. I just say them much more covertly.
I don't.
I'm not going to be calling for violence against anybody. Period.
I'm not calling for violence. I'm just saying I wouldn't be upset if it happened.
Fair enough. All right, brother. We will do this again, and I'm leaving this one up. Nobody's going to watch it, but I'm leaving it up anyway.
Yeah, a buddy of mine. What did he say? Hold on. He's being.
Oh wow.
He might even be watching it right now. Still, let's see. What did he say?
Whoa, there's somebody. I didn't see any of this. Did you? All this chat? There's somebody. Orchid Rise. Who's that?
Oh yeah, no, that's my buddy Casey, who kept trying to call in the entire show and got pissed off.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah. I mean, we could have we could have people call in. I just didn't see it.
Yeah, no, I'm trying to figure out what he said. He said something to the tune of, and now I can't figure out where he said it because he's cunty. Hold on, I've got.
You are a charmer, aren't you? You really do.
No.
You are quite. You pontificate. You express yourself with the best of them. I'm completely impressed with your command of the language.
Yeah, no, I'm not good at that.
Nope, but that's okay. You don't need to be. Your ideas are right there.
I watched that circle jerk for 30 plus minutes. It's a bunch of whining about shit. Neither one is willing to stand up and change. Get at me when your sack drops, Brent. That would be organized.
Okay, now that's funny.
That's fine. I'll see him in March and I'll drop my sack in his fucking mouth.
Oh, I'm sure he will. No, that's funny as hell. See, this is the thing too, is that there are people who will just sign on for something wholesale. You can call me whatever you want, but I won't. I have to believe it. I got to believe in it. It has to align with principle. It has to be, to just pick one side and go, well, that's because they're right, is dumb. Because I've seen both sides be more wrong than you could possibly, talk about a really self-destructive idea, is that there's two teams and you have to pick and fight for one regardless of what they do. Do you feel stupid yet?
God damn it. I think that's the face. I hope that's the face that makes it on the screenshot.
Oh, I'll make sure of it. I could go in and find it. I can actually go in and pick which one. I'll do that.
Fucking face going, do you feel stupid yet?
Yeah, I think, and in fact, I'm going to see if I can also get like some of my famous friends to just give me a soundbite saying, do you feel stupid yet? And then cut them all together, that would be funny. I like it. I think this is gonna work. Anyway, dude, let's get out of here. I got to go spend some time with the family and eat and not sleep because I spend most of my time thinking about shit like this.
Yeah, you're an asshole. And I know it.
And you know what, dude? I love you for saying it. And even more so for noticing it.
All right. Take it easy.
All right, brother. Have a good night.
See ya.